The conference room fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life. Ambassador Raylan watched the faces of the Galactic Council members shift from curiosity to horror. The footage showed a human child, no more than 5 cycles old, sleeping peacefully with its head resting on the belly of a massive predator. The creature's teeth were easily long enough to crush the child's skull, yet it lay there with its eyes closed, breathing in rhythm with the tiny human. "This is madness," declared Council Member Tessa, her scales rippling with distress. Why did the humans not remove these creatures from their settlements? Rylan had asked himself the same question for weeks now. His people, the Vethir, had spent millennia perfecting their defenses against predators. They built their cities in the safest locations, used advanced warning systems, and maintained strict protocols to keep dangerous animals far from their young. Yet here were the humans, apparently inviting death into their very homes. "The situation is more widespread than we initially believed," Raylan continued, switching to another image. This one showed a human settlement where dozens of these predators roamed freely among the population. "We have documented similar behavior on 17 different human colonies. They call these creatures dogs and claim they are companions, not threats." A murmur rippled through the council chamber. High Chancellor Dren leaned forward, his 3 eyes narrowing in concentration. "Companions? These are clearly evolved hunters. Look at the muscle structure, the jaw strength, the predatory instincts. How can an intelligent species be so blind to danger?" Raylan had prepared for this question. He pulled up a data file that had taken his research team months to compile. The humans have records going back thousands of years. They claim to have formed an alliance with these predators during their early evolutionary period. Over time, the relationship became symbiotic. The predators helped humans hunt and provided protection. In return, humans provided food and shelter. "Impossible," Tessa said. "Predators do not form alliances with prey species. It violates every natural law we understand." "And yet," Raylan replied, showing another image, "the evidence is undeniable. We have observed these dogs protecting human children from actual threats. We have seen them refuse food until their human companions eat first. They display loyalty that our own security forces would envy." The room erupted in debate. Some council members insisted the humans must be using some form of mind control on the animals. Others suggested the creatures were genetically modified and no longer true predators. A few wondered if humanity itself might be more dangerous than they appeared, capable of bending savage beasts to their will through means the council could not understand. Raylan waited for the chaos to subside before speaking again. "The Galactic Council authorized me to assemble a research team. With your permission, I would like to travel to human territories and investigate this phenomenon directly. We need to understand whether this behavior represents a threat to galactic stability or simply a cultural peculiarity we have not encountered before." High Chancellor Dren considered the proposal carefully. The humans had been members of the Galactic Council for only 3 cycles, having achieved faster-than-light travel remarkably quickly after their discovery. They had proven to be skilled diplomats and traders, but their homeworld was classified as a Class 12 Deathworld. Everything about their planet seemed designed to kill them, from the weather patterns to the wildlife, yet they had not only survived but thrived. "Very well," Dren said finally. "You will take a team to observe the humans and their predators. But I want security protocols in place. If these creatures pose a threat to our people, I want your team protected." Raylan bowed respectfully. "Of course, High Chancellor. I have already selected my team members. Kira, our behavioral specialist from Andara Prime, Torm, a security officer with extensive combat training, and Pell, a junior researcher who has been studying human culture. When will you depart?" "Within 2 cycles. The humans have agreed to host us at their moon base near Earth. From there, we will visit several locations to observe these dogs in different environments." As the council meeting ended and the members filed out, Raylan remained behind, staring at the frozen image of the human child and the predator. Something about the scene disturbed him deeply, but not because of the obvious danger. What troubled him was the expression on the predator's face. It looked content, almost protective, as if the small human sleeping against it was something precious that needed guarding. In all his years studying interstellar species, Raylan had never seen a predator look at prey with anything other than hunger or indifference. This was different. This was something the Galactic Council had no framework to understand. The humans had somehow convinced apex predators to become guardians instead of hunters. Raylan deactivated the hologram and made his way to his quarters. In 2 cycles, he would begin a journey that might reshape everything the Council understood about the nature of predation, survival, and the strange species called humanity. He just hoped his team would survive long enough to learn the truth. As he passed through the corridors of the Council station, Raylan noticed other members glancing at him with expressions of concern. They all knew about his mission. They all thought he was taking an unnecessary risk. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps getting close to humans and their predators was foolish. But if there was even a chance that humanity had discovered something fundamental about coexistence that other species had missed, it was worth the danger. The galaxy was full of conflicts between species, between predator and prey, between the strong and the weak. If humans had found a way to bridge that divide, the implications could change everything. Raylan entered his quarters and began preparing for the journey ahead. The transport shuttle descended through thick clouds, and Kira pressed her face against the viewport to catch her first glimpse of New Montana Colony. The human settlement sprawled across a valley between 2 mountain ranges, looking remarkably undefended for a frontier outpost. Back home on Endara Prime, every colony had walls, sensors, and automated defense systems. Here she could see humans walking freely in open spaces with no visible protection. "They are either very brave or very stupid," Torm muttered from the seat beside her. The security officer had not stopped complaining since they left the moon base. He carried 3 different weapons and wore armor rated to stop projectiles from most known predators. Kira suspected he would sleep in that armor if given the choice. Pell, the young researcher, was practically bouncing in his seat with excitement. Look at the integration with the natural environment. They have not clear-cut the forest or paved over the grasslands. They have built around the existing ecosystem, which means the existing predators still have access to the settlement, Torm pointed out darkly. Tactically unsound, the shuttle landed on a simple pad near the edge of town. As they disembarked, Kira's first impression was the noise. Birds called from the trees, insects buzzed in the warm air, and somewhere in the distance she heard something howling. Her species had eliminated most animal sounds from their cities centuries ago. The constant noise of nature had been deemed psychologically stressful. A human approached them wearing simple clothes and a friendly smile. "Welcome to New Montana. I'm Ben, the wildlife ranger here. Ambassador Raylan sent word you wanted to observe our relationship with local predators." "Local predators," Torm repeated, his hand moving unconsciously toward his weapon. "How many attacks occur monthly?" Ben looked confused. "Attacks? We haven't had a serious incident in over 2 years. Most of the animals around here have learned that humans aren't a threat, so they leave us alone." "But the howling," Kira said. "We heard it from the shuttle. That sounded like a pack hunter." "Oh, that's just the wolves," Ben replied casually, as if he had mentioned the weather. "There's a pack that lives in the hills north of town. About 15 individuals last count. Beautiful animals. Want to meet them?" Torm physically stepped between Ben and the rest of the team. "You want us to approach a pack of active predators voluntarily?" Ben's smile never wavered. "They're not going to hurt you. They're curious about aliens, actually. We don't get many visitors out here." Against every instinct screaming in her head, Kira agreed. This was why they had come after all. To observe and understand. They followed Ben along a trail that wound through the forest, and Kira noticed something odd. There were no defensive barriers, no warning signs, no emergency shelters. Just a simple path through the trees. After 20 minutes of walking, Ben stopped and held up his hand. "There," he whispered, pointing to a clearing ahead. Kira saw them and her blood went cold. 7 massive predators lounged in the grass, their gray fur blending with the rocks and shadows. They were larger than she had expected, with powerful jaws and intelligent eyes. As the group approached, several of the wolves lifted their heads to watch. "These are wolves," Ben explained softly. "They're related to dogs, but they never went through domestication. My ancestors learned to live alongside their ancestors about 15,000 years ago. Eventually, some wolves started living with humans permanently, and that's how we got dogs." One of the wolves stood and began walking toward them. Torm immediately drew his weapon, but Ben gently pushed the barrel down. "Please don't, that's Silver. She's the pack's scout. She just wants to check you out." The wolf approached slowly, her nose twitching as she scented the air. Kira held perfectly still, convinced she was about to die. The predator circled the group once, then sat down directly in front of Ben and made a sound that was almost conversational. "Good girl," Ben said, reaching out to scratch behind the wolf's ears. The predator leaned into the touch, her eyes closing in apparent pleasure.
"See? She's not aggressive."
"She's just curious." Pel's voice was barely a whisper. "Why does she allow you to touch her?" "You are potential prey." Ben laughed at that. "I don't think any human has been prey to wolves in thousands of years. We're too dangerous." Wolves figured that out pretty quickly. It was smarter to work with us than against us. These wolves know that I help keep other predators away from their territory. They know I leave food out during harsh winters. We have an understanding. "An understanding," Kira repeated slowly. "With predators. Sure, look, every species makes calculations about risk and reward. These wolves could try to hunt humans, but we're difficult prey. We're smart, we use tools, and we tend to hunt down animals that kill our people, or they can live near us peacefully. Benefit from the prey animals we attract to our settlement and occasionally get help when times are tough. It's not complicated." Torm had not lowered his weapon completely, but they are still predators. They still have the instinct to hunt and kill. "Of course they do," Ben agreed. "They're wolves, but having the ability to hunt doesn't mean they have to hunt everything they see. They're intelligent enough to know the difference between prey and neighbors." Another wolf approached, this one darker and larger than Silver. Several smaller wolves followed behind it, their movements playful and curious. Kira watched in amazement as they investigated the alien visitors, sniffing and circling but showing no signs of aggression. "This is the alpha male, Storm," Ben said. "And those are some of this year's pups. They're about 6 months old now." One of the young wolves bounded over to Pel and sniffed his leg with intense interest. The young researcher stood frozen, barely breathing. The pup sneezed, shook its head, and then ran back to its siblings. "I think he's not sure what to make of you," Ben said with a grin. "Probably never smelled anything like an alien before." They spent another hour in the clearing, observing the wolf pack as they rested and played. Kira took detailed notes, trying to record every interaction, every gesture, every moment of peaceful coexistence between human and predator. It defied everything she had been taught about the natural order of species. As they walked back to town, Torm finally spoke. "I still believe this is dangerous." "Maybe," Ben replied. "But my daughter plays in these woods every day. The wolves have seen her since she was a baby. They've never threatened her once. That's not luck, that's trust." Sunlight filtered through the water in shifting patterns of blue and gold. Kira stood on the deck of the research vessel, staring down at the ocean with deep unease. Her species had evolved on a world with shallow seas and few aquatic predators. The idea of entering deep water filled with unknown creatures triggered ancient fears she could not entirely suppress. "The dive cages are completely secure," Rachel said. Checking the equipment one final time, the human marine biologist moved with easy confidence, clearly comfortable in this environment that terrified Kira. "You'll be able to observe everything safely from inside." "And you will be in the cage with us?" Torm asked pointedly. Rachel smiled and shook her head. "No, I'll be swimming outside. I need to place some tracking tags on a few sharks today, and I can't do that from inside a cage." "Sharks," Pel said, consulting his datapad. "Apex predators, multiple rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh, capable of detecting blood from kilometers away. And you intend to swim among them without protection?" "They're not as dangerous as people think," Rachel replied. "Sharks kill fewer than 10 humans per year on Earth. You're more likely to die from a falling coconut than a shark attack. They're mostly curious, not aggressive." Torm looked like he wanted to argue, but Kira cut him off. "We came here to observe human behavior with predators. This is exactly what we need to see." The dive cage was lowered into the water with the 3 alien researchers inside. Kira gripped the bars tightly as they descended into the blue depths. Fish scattered as they passed, and she could see the ocean floor far below, covered in rocks and swaying plants. Rachel dove in separately, wearing only a thin suit and carrying a small device. "She has no armor," Torm observed, his voice crackling through the communication system. "No weapons." "This is insane." Then Kira saw it, a massive shape gliding through the water with terrible grace. The shark was easily 4 meters long, its body perfectly designed for hunting. Rows of teeth were visible even from a distance, and its black eyes seemed to track everything in its environment. The shark swam directly toward Rachel. Kira's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to look away but could not. The predator approached the human slowly, and Rachel simply floated in place, making no sudden movements. The shark circled her once, twice, its body passing close enough to touch. Then Rachel reached out and gently ran her hand along the shark's flank. Impossible, Torm breathed. The shark did not attack. Instead, it seemed to slow down, allowing Rachel to keep pace with it. She produced the tracking device from her belt and carefully attached it to the shark's dorsal fin. The whole process took less than 30 seconds. When she finished, the shark gave a lazy flick of its tail and swam away into the deeper water. Rachel swam over to the cage and spoke through the communication link. That was a great white shark. Female, about 15 years old. I've been tracking her for 3 years now. She's completely used to human presence. But she could have killed you, Kira said. Why did she not attack? Because I'm not prey, Rachel explained. Sharks prefer seals and fish. Humans don't taste right to them. Most shark attacks are cases of mistaken identity. The shark thinks a surfer might be a seal, takes a bite, realizes its mistake, and swims away. Most attacks? Torm seized on the word. So some humans do die? Yes, Rachel admitted. But it's rare, and usually in situations where the shark is confused or startled. If you respect them and understand their behavior, they're not a threat. Another shark appeared, then another. Soon there were 5 of the massive predators swimming around the cage. Kira watched in fascination as Rachel moved among them like she belonged there. She touched them, examined them, and showed no fear whatsoever. The sharks, for their part, seemed almost indifferent to her presence. They glided past without aggression, focused on hunting the smaller fish in the area. Why do you do this? Pell asked. Why study creatures that could harm you? Rachel's answer came immediately. Because they need protection. Humans have been killing sharks for centuries. We hunt them for their fins, we accidentally catch them in nets, we pollute their habitats. Shark populations have dropped by 70% in the last 50 years. If we don't understand them and teach others to value them, they'll go extinct. But they are predators, Kira said. Your species is also a predator. Why do you care if other predators disappear? Rachel was quiet for a moment, floating in the water as sharks circled around her. Because the ocean needs them. Sharks keep the ecosystem balanced. They hunt the sick and weak fish, which keeps the populations healthy. Without sharks, the whole system falls apart. And besides, they're beautiful. They've been on Earth for over 400 million years. They survived 5 mass extinctions. They deserve to survive us too. One of the larger sharks swam close to Rachel, and she reached out to touch a scar on its side. This one was caught in a fishing net 2 years ago. She nearly died. We cut her free and treated her wounds. Now she's back and healthy. The shark remembers you? Pell asked. Maybe. Or maybe she's just learned that humans in wetsuits aren't a threat. Either way, she's not afraid of me, and I'm not afraid of her. They stayed in the water for another hour. Kira watched as Rachel documented shark behavior, took measurements, and even removed a fishing hook that had gotten stuck in a younger shark's mouth. The shark held still while she worked, as if it understood she was trying to help. When they finally surfaced and climbed back onto the research vessel, Kira felt different. Something about watching Rachel move fearlessly among apex predators had shifted her understanding. The human had not controlled the sharks or dominated them. She had simply existed alongside them with mutual respect. You do this every day? Torm asked, pulling off his diving equipment. Most days, Rachel replied. It's my life's work. Someone has to speak for the sharks, and it might as well be me. As the vessel turned back toward shore, Kira looked out at the ocean with new eyes. Somewhere beneath those waves, predators that could kill a human in seconds were swimming peacefully, going about their lives. And humans like Rachel had decided that those predators were worth protecting, even at personal risk. It was beginning to make a strange kind of sense. Snow crunched under their boots as the research team followed David through the forest. Pine trees towered overhead, their branches heavy with ice and frost. Kira's environmental suit kept her warm, but she could see her breath misting in the cold air. This was Earth's northern territory, a place where winter lasted 6 months and temperatures could kill an unprotected human in minutes. The sanctuary is just ahead, David called back to them. He was a large man with a thick beard, dressed in layers of practical clothing. Unlike Rachel or Ben, he looked like someone built to survive in harsh conditions. We've got 12 bears currently in rehabilitation. Most of them will be released back to the wild in spring. Bears, Torm said flatly. Please tell me these are small bears, David laughed. No such thing as a small bear around here. The adult males can weigh over 300 kilograms. But don't worry, they're used to people. The sanctuary consisted of several large enclosures connected by gates and corridors. Kira could see massive shapes moving inside, brown and black fur visible against the snow. As they approached, one of the bears stood up on its hind legs, easily reaching 3 meters tall. Its claws were as long as her fingers. "That's Bruno," David said with obvious affection. "He was orphaned last year when hunters killed his mother. Found him starving in a den, barely alive. Now look at him. Healthy and strong. We'll release him this spring." "You raised a predator from infancy," Pell said, his recording device capturing everything. "Did it not imprint on you as a parent?" "Sure he did," David replied. "But bears aren't social like dogs or wolves. Once he's big enough to survive on his own, his instinct will be to find his own territory. We've been gradually reducing contact over the last few months, so he doesn't become too dependent on humans." David led them to a smaller enclosure, where 3 young bears were tumbling over each other in the snow. They looked almost cute, playing like oversized puppies. "These are this year's cubs. Their mother was killed by a vehicle on a highway. They're about 8 months old now. May we approach them?" Kira asked, surprising herself with the question. David considered for a moment. "Sure, but slowly. They're still young enough to be friendly, but they don't know their own strength." He opened the gate and walked into the enclosure. The cubs immediately stopped playing and rushed toward him, making excited huffing sounds. David knelt down and was instantly mobbed by 300 pounds of enthusiastic bear cubs. They climbed on him, licked his face, and made sounds that Kira could only describe as happy. "Come on in," David called. "They won't hurt you." Torm absolutely refused, but Kira and Pell stepped carefully into the enclosure. One of the cubs noticed them immediately and bounded over, its curiosity overwhelming any caution. It sniffed Kira's leg, sneezed, and then gently pawed at her environmental suit. "He's trying to figure out what you are," David explained, scratching another cub behind the ears. "They're very curious at this age. Everything is new and interesting." The cub pawed at Kira again, this time with more force. Even though it was just playing, the strength in that paw was obvious. These animals were built to survive in one of Earth's harshest environments. They had claws for climbing, teeth for tearing, and muscles for fighting. And yet this one was treating her like a peculiar toy it wanted to understand. "Why do you do this?" Kira asked, watching David interact with the cubs like they were his own children. "Why dedicate your life to saving predators?" David's expression grew serious. "Because we almost destroyed them. 100 years ago, humans hunted bears nearly to extinction. We killed them for sport, for their fur, because we were afraid of them. We destroyed their forests and poisoned their rivers. By the time we realized what we had done, there were only a few thousand left." He stood up and the cubs immediately climbed up his legs, trying to get his attention. These bears didn't ask to be orphaned. They didn't ask for humans to kill their mothers or destroy their habitat. The least we can do is give them a chance to survive. "It's our responsibility." "But they are dangerous," Torm called from outside the fence. "What if one attacks you?" "It's happened," David said calmly. "Got mauled by a bear I was trying to relocate about 5 years ago. 3 broken ribs, punctured lung, lost a lot of blood. Nearly died." Kira stared at him. "And yet you continue this work?" "Of course. It wasn't the bear's fault. She was scared and protecting her cubs. I made a mistake in how I approached her. I learned from it and now I'm more careful." He gently pushed one of the cubs away from his pockets. "These animals aren't evil or malicious. They're just trying to survive. If we can help them do that, why wouldn't we?" They spent the rest of the day touring the sanctuary. David showed them bears recovering from injuries, bears being prepared for release, and even a very old bear that was too habituated to humans to ever return to the wild. That one, named Grace, was nearly 30 years old and had been at the sanctuary for most of her life. She was used in entertainment, David explained as the old bear lay in her heated enclosure, kept in a small cage made to perform tricks. By the time we rescued her, she had forgotten how to be a bear. So she lives here now, comfortable and safe. Kira approached the enclosure carefully. Grace opened one eye and looked at her with what seemed like ancient wisdom. "She seems peaceful." "She's earned her peace," David said softly. "After everything humans put her through, it's the least we can give her." As they prepared to leave, Kira noticed David entering Bruno's enclosure one last time. The massive bear approached him, and for a moment, Kira thought she was about to witness an attack. Instead, Bruno gently pressed his head against David's chest and the human wrapped his arms around the bear's neck. You're going to do great out there, David whispered to the bear. Remember everything I taught you. Find good territory, catch plenty of fish, stay away from humans. The bear made a low rumbling sound and pulled away. He looked at David for a long moment, then turned and walked to the far side of the enclosure. It was a goodbye, Kira realized. Come spring, that bear would be wild and free, and David would probably never see him again. Does it hurt? Pell asked quietly. Letting them go? David smiled, though his eyes were bright. Every single time. But that's the point. They're not supposed to stay with me. They're supposed to be wild. The research vessel hummed quietly as it traveled through space, leaving Earth behind. Kira sat in the observation room, reviewing weeks of footage and data. Every screen showed a different example of humans interacting with creatures that should have been their enemies. Wolves playing with children. Sharks accepting tags from scientists. Bears nuzzling their rescuers. It was overwhelming. None of this makes sense, Torm said, pacing back and forth. He had been agitated since they left the bear sanctuary. Every principle of survival, every natural law says that predators and prey cannot coexist peacefully. Yet humans have somehow broken this rule repeatedly. Pell was comparing genetic data on his tablet. I have been analyzing the domestication records. Humans have successfully formed partnerships with over 40 different predator species throughout their history. Dogs, cats, ferrets, even birds of prey. The timeline shows this behavior is not new. It is fundamental to their development as a species. That's what troubles me, Kira said, pulling up a galactic map. Look at this. Every species we have contacted follows the same pattern. They eliminate predators from their environments or maintain strict separation. The Vether built walls. The Andara developed automated defenses. The Krell simply destroyed any creature that posed a threat. She zoomed in on Earth's location. But humans evolved on a world filled with thousands of predator species. Instead of eliminating them, humans learned to live alongside them. Some they domesticated, others they simply coexisted with. Why fear? Torm suggested. Perhaps they were too primitive to properly defend themselves, so they had no choice but to adapt. Pell shook his head. The data does not support that. Humans developed advanced weapons very early in their evolution. Stone tools, spears, traps. They were perfectly capable of eliminating predators if they chose to. But they did not choose that path. Kira pulled up footage from the wolf pack observation. Ben said something interesting. He said wolves calculated that working with humans was smarter than fighting them. But that suggests humans were dangerous enough that predators had to make a choice. Fight and die or cooperate and thrive. So humans were the apex predators, Torm said slowly, and they offered other predators a place in their pack rather than eliminating competition. But why? Kira stood and began pacing now too. Why would any predator species willingly share resources with competitors? It violates every survival instinct. Pell brought up another file. I have been studying human psychology. There is a concept they call empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another being. Humans possess this ability to an unusual degree, even extending it to other species. Empathy is a weakness, Torm argued. It prevents optimal decision-making. A predator that feels empathy for its prey will starve. And yet humans dominated their entire planet, Kira countered. They reached the top of the food chain and then achieved space travel in a remarkably short time. How is that weakness? They fell silent, watching footage of Rachel swimming with sharks. The human moved through the water with confidence, showing no fear despite being surrounded by creatures that could kill her in seconds. The sharks ignored her, intent on their own hunting. I have a theory, Pell said hesitantly. What if human empathy is not a weakness but a weapon? Think about what we have observed. Humans befriend predators, yes, but they also become incredibly protective of those friends. David nearly died saving bears. Rachel dedicates her life to protecting sharks. Ben guards wolves that live near his settlement. He pulled up statistics on human conflicts. Now look at what happens when humans feel their friends are threatened. The data shows humans are capable of extreme violence when protecting those they care about. They form emotional bonds that transcend logic or self-preservation. Kira felt something click in her mind. You're saying humans don't befriend predators despite the danger. They befriend them because of it. Exactly, Pell said, his excitement growing. Humans evolved on a deathworld surrounded by threats. Instead of building walls or hiding, they turned their enemies into allies. A wolf is dangerous to humans, yes, but a wolf that considers humans part of its pack is dangerous to everything else. Humans weaponized friendship. Torm stopped pacing. That's horrifying. That's brilliant, Kira corrected. Think about it strategically. Every species we know either fights predators or flees from them. Humans do neither. They form alliances. They create loyalty. A human with a dog has a guardian that will die to protect them. A human who protects sharks gains an entire ocean of apex predators that associate humans with safety, rather than threat. She pulled up the Council's first contact reports. When humans joined the Galactic Council, what was the first thing they did? They started forming friendships with member species. They shared technology freely. They offered help without demanding immediate payment. Other species thought they were naive. But they were establishing alliances, Pell finished, the same way they established alliances with wolves and sharks and bears. They were turning potential enemies into friends. Torm sat down heavily. So when humans befriend predators, they are not being foolish or reckless. They are executing a survival strategy that has worked for their entire evolutionary history. Yes, Kira said.
And it's a strategy that no other species has successfully replicated.
We build walls. We create weapons. We establish dominance through force. Humans build bridges. They create loyalty. They establish dominance through connection. It's still dangerous, Torm insisted. David was nearly killed by a bear he was trying to help. True, Kira agreed. But David survived, learned from the experience, and continued his work. The risk did not deter him because the alternative was abandoning a strategy that has served humanity for millennia. They accept the danger as the price of alliance. Pell displayed a new chart showing human expansion into space, and now they are applying this strategy on a galactic scale. They befriend aliens the same way they befriended dogs, with trust, patience, and the assumption that former enemies can become family. The three of them sat in silence, absorbing the implications. Humans had not simply survived their dangerous world. They had thrived by turning that danger into strength. Every predator that accepted their friendship became a guardian. Every alliance made them stronger. The Council needs to hear this, Kira said finally. They need to understand that human behavior is not a quirk or a weakness. It's a sophisticated survival strategy. Do you think they'll believe us? Torm asked. Kira smiled. I'll show them the footage of you refusing to enter the bear enclosure while those cubs climbed all over David. If humans can make friends with bears, surely the Council can learn to trust humans. The Galactic Council chamber was packed. Word had spread about the research team's findings, and representatives from over 50 species had gathered to hear the report. Kira stood at the central podium, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon her. Behind her, massive screens displayed the footage they had collected. Esteemed members of the Council, she began. 3 cycles ago, you authorized our team to investigate human relationships with predatory species. What we discovered challenges everything we thought we understood about survival, evolution, and the nature of sentient life. The screens came alive with images. Human children sleeping beside dogs, Rachel swimming with sharks, David embracing a bear. The Council chamber filled with murmurs of disbelief and concern. Your initial assessment was correct, Kira continued. Humans do regularly interact with creatures capable of killing them. However, your conclusion that this behavior represents foolishness or recklessness was incorrect. What we observed was a sophisticated survival strategy that has served humanity for over 15,000 years. High Chancellor Dren leaned forward. Explain, Kira took a breath. Humans evolved on what we classify as a Class 12 death world. Earth contains thousands of predator species, extreme weather events, and countless other threats. Most species in that situation would develop either advanced defensive technology or would flee to safer environments. She displayed a timeline of human evolution. Humans did neither. Instead, they formed alliances. They identified the most dangerous predators in their environment and systematically turned them into partners. The process is called domestication, but that word does not fully capture what occurs. Pell stepped forward to add context. We analyzed the genetic records. When humans domesticated wolves, they did not simply breed for docility. They bred for loyalty, intelligence, and protective instincts. They created an animal that would defend human children with its life. A threat had become a guardian. Torm, still looking uncomfortable, contributed his perspective. From a security standpoint, the strategy is remarkably effective. A human protected by trained dogs is significantly more difficult to threaten than a human relying on technology alone. The dogs cannot be hacked, do not require power sources, and possess sensory abilities that exceed most scanning equipment. The screens showed footage of police dogs tracking suspects, rescue dogs finding disaster victims, and service dogs protecting disabled humans. Humans have created specialized variations of these predators for hundreds of different tasks, Kira explained. And this is just one species. They have done similar work with cats, birds, and even insects. Ambassador Rallen, who had been watching silently, finally spoke. But why? Why invest so much effort into turning predators into allies when barriers and weapons would be simpler? Because barriers can be breached and weapons can fail, Kira replied. But a bond of loyalty properly established endures. Humans understood something that we did not. The strongest defense is not a wall or a weapon. It is a friend who will fight beside you. She pulled up data from human colony worlds. Look at the settlement patterns. Human colonies consistently report fewer conflicts with local wildlife than colonies established by other species. The Vethir colony on Meridian Prime requires constant defensive operations against native predators. The human colony on New Montana lives peacefully alongside similar predator species. The difference is approach. Humans study the predators, Pell added. They learn their behavior, understand their needs, and find ways to coexist. Rachel protects sharks not just because she values them, but because healthy ocean ecosystems benefit human settlements. David rescues bears because a world with bears is more stable than a world without them. They think in terms of whole systems, not individual threats. Council member Tessa raised an objection. But humans are still sometimes killed by these predators. We have records of fatal attacks by dogs, sharks, and bears. How can you claim this strategy is successful when it clearly carries risk? Torm answered before Kira could. I struggled with this question as well. But consider this. The Vethir have eliminated all predators from our core worlds. Yet our security forces still record hundreds of deaths annually from defense system malfunctions, accidents during predator response operations, and conflicts arising from resource scarcity caused by ecological imbalance. He pulled up comparative statistics. Humans accept a small number of deaths from their predator allies in exchange for massive gains in security, ecological stability, and cultural development. The math favors their approach. Kira returned to the central podium. But the most important discovery is not about predators at all. It is about humans themselves. They possess an ability to form emotional bonds that transcend species barriers. They can feel empathy for creatures completely unlike themselves. This ability, which might seem like a weakness, is actually their greatest strength. The screens showed footage of human-alien interactions since first contact. Humans sharing meals with methane-breathing Krell. Humans learning the musical language of the Syndra. Humans establishing trade partnerships with species that had been rivals for centuries. They are doing to us what they did to wolves, Kira said softly. They are turning potential enemies into friends. Not through force or manipulation, but through genuine connection. They extend trust, offer help, and assume the best until proven otherwise. The chamber fell silent. Kira could see the council members processing this information, weighing it against their own experiences with humanity. High Chancellor Dren spoke carefully. Are you suggesting that humans are deliberately using emotional manipulation as a political strategy? No, Kira said firmly. That is what makes this so powerful. Humans are not pretending to care about other species. They genuinely do care. Their empathy is real. When a human offers friendship, it is authentic, and that authenticity is what makes the bond so strong. Ambassador Rallen stood. I have worked closely with human diplomats for 3 cycles. I can confirm that their approach to alliance building is unlike anything we have encountered. They invest heavily in relationships, sometimes at cost to themselves. They remember details about your culture, your family, your interests. They treat strangers as potential friends rather than potential threats. A young council member from a recently contacted species raised her hand. But is this not dangerous? If humans can inspire such loyalty, could they not use it to dominate the galaxy? Kira smiled. I asked David the same question in different words. He told me something I will never forget. He said humans have a responsibility to protect those weaker than themselves. It is not about dominance. It is about guardianship. She displayed the final piece of footage. A human child and an alien child, both species represented in the council, playing together in a park on Earth. A large dog sat nearby, watching both children with equal attention. When the alien child stumbled, the dog immediately moved to steady it, just as it would for the human child. This, Kira said, is what humans offer. Not conquest, not domination, partnership. They will befriend your predators, yes. But more importantly, they will befriend you. And once a human considers you a friend, they will protect you with the same fierce loyalty they show to their dogs, their sharks, and their bears. The council erupted in discussion. Some members were excited by the possibilities. Others expressed concern about human influence. But no one could deny what the footage showed. Humans had mastered something unique in the galaxy. They had learned to turn enemies into family. As the session ended and members filed out, High Chancellor Dren approached Kira. Your report was enlightening. I believe we should establish cultural exchange programs with humanity. Let them teach us their methods, Kira nodded. With respect, Chancellor, I think they already are. Every interaction, every friendship, every alliance they form is teaching us. The question is whether we are ready to learn. Outside the council chamber, Kira saw a group of alien children gathered around a human family visiting the station. The humans had brought their dog, and the children were carefully petting it under the family's supervision. The dog's tail wagged slowly, patiently accepting attention from creatures it had never seen before. Torm appeared beside her. I was wrong about them, he admitted quietly. Humans are not reckless. They are braver than any species I have encountered. Because they befriend predators? Kira asked. No, Torm replied, watching the children and the dog. Because they trust that the universe can be better than it is. They see danger and choose connection. They face fear and choose friendship. That takes more courage than any weapon could provide, Kira smiled. Perhaps humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was not their technology or their strategies. Perhaps it was simply showing other species that former enemies could become friends, and that friendship was stronger than any wall.